S'il vous plaît. Jamie?
Mute this. Okay, let me get myself straight here. That might take 20 minutes. No, just kidding. Okay, so in preparing the economic development budget, I kept going back to direction from Commissioner Pickram, where he said to present the FY 2019 budget if I were starting from scratch. So I've had many conversations, done lots of research, and given it a lot of thought. So here we go. There's three major components to the economic development request. Two are personnel related, and one is related to funding for marketing. So we'll start with the two personnel requests, and they're interrelated. So it was kind of hard for me in the memos to break them out. So in my discussion about how to structure economic development for Kent County, I was asked two questions. How do other counties and organizations in Maryland do it, and how do other counties do it that are of similar size to Kent County? So I provided all of that information, but in the end, I've come to the conclusion that the population of Kent, 20,000, cannot be compared to a county with the population of 1 million, such as Montgomery County. So the budget and the resources dedicated to economic development have to be aligned with the goals and objectives for the county, and also the activity level and many other things. So then I began to think about what is economic development. And I came up with 5 main categories. It's business development, it's workforce development, it's community development, it's housing development, it's tourism development. And all of those things should be viewed through a wider lens of economic development, with economic development being improving the economic and social well-being of the people. So when I started to think about those, I looked at them individually. And workforce development is addressed in other areas within the county through the Department of Labor Licensing Regulation, the Workforce Investment Board, and other entities. Community development is addressed by the Local Management Board with the Social Action Committee and different areas there, and other organizations. Housing development is addressed through the Maryland Rural Development Corporation. They have a housing office here in Chestertown now. And tourism development obviously has its own department. So my main focus was then where's the void, and that's business development. So I gave that a lot of thought. So my vision of the ideal model for Kent County would be a director, a business development manager, and an admin assistant. Now, do I think that Kent County has the revenues or the activities to sustain that? I honestly don't know right now. So what my proposal is to change it to a smaller structure with a director and an admin assistant. And I actually went through and listed out the duties for each of those, what a director would do, what a business development manager would do, and what an admin assistant would do. And in those, some of those are currently being done, some of them are hit and miss, some of them aren't being done at all, and some of them are being done with help from IT is helping with a lot of my admin assistant duties. So there are things that are being done, and then there's things that are not being done that could be done for economic development within Kent County. So I'm not going to go through all of those because you guys did receive all of that information, but that's the way that I approached it. But I think you can clearly see in that list that it's more of a workload than just for one person. It's more than one person can handle if we're doing it correctly. So adding a person is necessary.
Do you think that adding a person that would be a full, could they be fully occupied?
Yes. And honestly, the first 2 years that I did economic development, I was asked if I was going to request a person at that time, and I didn't feel that I knew at that time if there was enough workload, meaningful workload, to keep a full-time person busy. Last year when I requested a person, I knew there was, and now I know there's more of a need. So yes. The second request was to change from a coordinator to a director. And I provided a memo with some information on that, so I'm not going to go over that. But what I will say is the level of work and responsibilities that they've been at a director level. There's no question about it that I'm doing the same thing that my peers are doing in other counties that are directors. So regardless of the title, the work is the same. The departmental accomplishments, I shared a bunch of those on the memo of what, over the last 4 years, some things that have been accomplished through economic development. But I do want to share a couple more because some of these came to mind after the fact, or actually came to fruition after the fact. The Upper Shore Regional Council, we've been able to leverage $15,000 for marketing through the Upper Shore Regional Council. They actually allotted us $5,000 to market the Hot Desk Network on the Eastern Shore and specifically the Kent County location. And we do have our first business going into the business incubator this week. And then in addition to that, $10,000 to market incentives and programs. So the Maryland PACE program, the Enterprise Zone, Commerce Zone, all of the programs that are now available to businesses to market them and get the word out about Kent County. So that's been very helpful. So there was $15,000 there for marketing in FY 2018. In addition to that, there's $25,000 slated currently for the 301 study. And I'm hoping to bring more of that to you guys shortly. But we're in the process of trying to plan out the best way to spend that $25,000 this year, and then how to build on that for that 301 corridor.
And you're working with Wayne?
Working with Wayne Morris, yes, and Susan O'Neill and Queen Anne's County, because they're in the middle of their study too. So trying not to duplicate work, but still get all the information that the county needs.
Yes, most of it that you're looking at is how to do the infrastructure.
Infrastructure is the main part of the Earth data study that was done 10 years ago, and we believe that's the low-hanging fruit, is to update that report with Earth data. So yes, that's the main part of it. In addition to that, there's some businesses that have benefited. Creophil Fiber was just awarded $17,500 from the Department of Commerce through their partnership for workforce quality training program. So that money has been brought into the county. With the Commerce Zone, the enabling legislation that allowed us to enact the Commerce Zone, or to create the Commerce Zone, was actually enacted in 1957. So we could have done that at any time, and it's done now. And two businesses have actually applied to take advantage of that, Eastern Shore Tents and Events, and now Gillespie with their addition to their precast plant on Morg Neck Road. The enterprise zones, they've been around since 1982, and we have, the first application and approval we gotten, and Dixon and Lamont are both taking advantage of those tax credits. The Maryland PACE program, Kent County had the first Maryland PACE project. Now, Maryland PACE project is different than Montgomery County. I do have to clarify that, because Montgomery County has their own program and they have had some projects. But the rest of the state is Maryland PACE, and Kent County had the first project with the finishing touch. And there is a video on the Facebook page that was just released. So that's pretty cool. And then the alcohol beverage regulations, again, those were amended to meet the needs of changing business models, and those could have been done at any time. We could have proposed things anywhere along the way as those business needs changed. So that's an accomplishment. And I want to talk about business expansions a little bit as well. Business expansions, you know, I don't want to go through them all because you guys already are aware of them, but the Dixon Business Campus, Dixon Talbot Boulevard, Lamont, Gillespie, Creophil, Willards, Shore Distributors, Washington College continues to expand. And it's very difficult to quantify that, but business expansion definitely equals capital investment, which definitely equals good for the local economy. So it's hard to quantify it, but we know these things are happening. So I won't go over any more, but so let's see. And I will share a comment from a trusted colleague that says, for the change from a coordinator to a director, the comment was, the change demonstrates to the citizens, our existing businesses, regional economic development organizations, the level of importance we place on the retention, growth, and development of businesses within our community to improve our local economy. And I think that's important. It shows that we do have a commitment. So then the last request is funding for marketing, and I do want to read a little bit on this because marketing is extremely important, and I don't feel that in the time I've been with the county, there hasn't been a strong focus on marketing the county other than to visitors. We do a great job with marketing to visitors for tourism. But I'm talking more about marketing the county to residents, to businesses, to workers, to try to grow the county population. So the request is an increase from $20,000 to $38,400. And while that sounds like a huge increase, $38,000 is not a lot of money to market. One ad in Site Selection magazine can cost $10,000. We were able to do a collaboration with the entire Eastern Shore and market in Site Selection, but we got a reduced rate this in March, a reduced rate because we did partner with the 9 counties on the Eastern Shore to make that happen. So just a focus on economic development demands multi-level marketing, print, radio, digital, both internally and externally in businesses about different programs, tax incentives, because they need that information just as much as somebody we're trying to attract. So I don't want to forget about the internal marketing component of it. And then external marketing is attracting the residents, businesses, and workers. And the importance of marketing has increased as we have the departments developed. So we've added incentives and programs, and so we need to get the word out about the desired quality of life and quality opportunities in Kent County to attract citizens to develop a thriving, diverse communities. So I always go back to every business shares the same #1 concern, and that is workforce. So, and then also not just employers. I was at a Midshore Community Foundation training session, and the #1 concern was stagnant and aging population. So the additional concerns include a lack of volunteers, a lack of attendance at events, decreased donations, stagnant growth, and then keeping in mind from the public safety aspect, we have a lack of volunteers in our communities as our communities age. So I just feel that efforts to attract residents and workers has to be a priority for Kent County's economic sustainability and quality of life for our citizens. And the proposal focuses on marketing to areas that have the highest probability to draw people to Kent County. So it's nearby non-urban areas that are beginning to experience the traffic congestion and major development where their residents and workers miss the lifestyle that we currently enjoy in Kent County. And again, business retention and expansion relies on current employers having access to an able workforce. And business attraction, the same thing. We have to have that workforce. So,
How would you go about improving our quality of our workforce?
improving the quality of the workforce, attracting residents to move to Kent County, whether they come here to work and they eventually they come here to work, or they come here to live, and then you hope one begets the other, and that they live and work in Kent County. So increasing the population would mitigate or reverse the decline in our public school population, sustain our longer-term population with younger families, and increase property tax base, both residential and commercial. And the investment, that's my last point on this one, the investment in the open access fiber optic broadband network throughout Kent County can now be leveraged to attract the types of businesses we desire to create opportunities, inspire innovation, and enrich our communities. And I did go through and list each place where I would use the marketing money and how we would use it, whether it would be internal, external, and what we would be marketing to. And I do have a little video, if I can share real quick, that Talbot County recently did. This is the type of, I'd like to do this type of thing more for Kent County, given the resources. And a local media company actually did this. You good?
I forgot we're not logged on to the, what you call it. It's okay. We got it.
You got it?
We got it in a second.
How would you expand on something like that to include walking the, Clearfields, the Dixon Bouch, county government, all these entities that like the Dixon expansion?
There are many, many, many ideas for doing videos like this to promote economic development in the county. Obviously showcasing, our current businesses, getting testimonials from recently graduated professionals in the county. There's many ideas for producing videos like this. And again, the media company is actually located in Galena, which is exciting. So, given the resources, we have the talent right here to produce things of that nature.
What medium would you use to show this video?
It can be used. It can be used on the website. It can be used on all of the social media outlets, and then it can be used at meetings. There's lots of ways that it could be used. When I have a potential business person who wants to come to the county, it's a way to showcase the county and what we have to offer. So there's lots of different ways that it can be used.
So you utilize LinkedIn, Facebook, all these different things that are actually free.
Absolutely.
Promote once you've created something like that.
Yes, and they are all free, but with a little bit of funding, I could also do some promotion of ads and do some LinkedIn promotions. Currently, it's 90% of the free stuff that I'm utilizing. And economic development is on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube.
I don't want to say too much about it because I'm not sure exactly what that number is yet, but money that this region may receive could easily double
Yes,
what we've seen in the past.
yes.
And there's a very attractive number out there. I don't want to steal Susan's thunder if she comes once she receives notification of that, but there's a good chance that we're going to receive some money for each one of the 3 counties. Will receive a fairly good chunk of money. Just wondering if, and then it'll be up to each county to decide how we spend that money and what we. I mean, wonder if this wouldn't be something that we could fund out of that money as well. If
absolutely.
And I'm not saying that we're not going to fund it ourselves, but I'm just knowing that money may be out there.
Right, and absolutely, and that's, so in addition to the 20,000 that I had for marketing this past year, I utilized that, and then I also reallocated some funds from different areas to work on marketing, and got the additional 15,000 from the Upper Shore Regional Council. Marketing is expensive, when you're trying to address all of the different vehicles, and not just focus on the free. So, and I know you guys are going to talk about allocations in a bit, but I do know that there's 3 in particular that relate to economic development. One is the Upper Shore Regional Council, which I believe that amount is legislated, and that's legislated, Shelley?
10,000 is.
It's legislated.
For a number of years, each of the counties is given 12.
And I feel like, that 12,000 now is being leveraged to bring that money back into the county, so I would support that request from an economic development standpoint. The other is the Small Business Development Corporation. They request 6,000 each year. Again, that's another one that I support. I do refer a lot of business owners to Rich. Rich covers 5 counties. My strategy is once someone is further along in the process of starting a venture, they've got things in order, they've got their business plan in order, and they're ready to go, and they're looking at, they have unique needs, then Rich gets involved. And then the last one is the SCORE chapter is requesting $5,000. And they had requested money previously, and they haven't, I think, for the last 2 years, because they didn't need it, and now they need to build their fund back up. And I actually just referred 3 this week to SCORE. And when I refer someone to them, they respond within 2 or 3 days. They've done connected with that person and started them on their way. So those are 3 that I would definitely support, because it's...
Why couldn't the funding for SCORE be through your budget?
Because my budget is very thin now, and I am trying to figure out how to do all the things I need to do with the current funding that I have.
Good answer.
So I will end, unless you guys have any questions, I'll end by saying I know that there are many, many opinions about economic development and what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing, and they're shared loudly, broadly, and openly. And the opinions are from one range of the spectrum to the other. So the vision has been to work collaboratively with businesses, organizations, departments, the towns, other counties, the state, etc., and remain focused on creating a welcoming business environment in Kent County, retention and expansion of existing businesses, and then marketing Kent County to attract residents, businesses, and workers by sharing the desired quality of life and the quality opportunities that we have to offer, and not being sidetracked by the opinions of individuals, groups, or special interests.
What do you see as, we're doing fiber and life, et cetera, and we know we have transportation. What do you think is our Achilles heel as far as economic development is concerned? Where are we falling short?
That's a good question. I feel like we're starting to put it together. I think it, no, that's fine. No, I can answer it. I think we're starting to put it together, but I think it all boils down to customer service. And it all boils down to when someone approaches us about coming to do business in the county and tells us their idea of what they want to do, is how we approach it, rather than to say, no, you can't do that, but to tell them how they can do it. It's just a different mindset if we say yes first and then we try to work out the details along the way. To me, customer service is, it's my opinion, customer service can make or break any organization, any business, and the approach has to be that we want the business and we need to figure out a way for them to come here and operate within our guidelines, but I do think there's always a way, and we just got to be looking for that rather than just answering the question at the surface. We need to dig it a little deeper.
The answer should never be no.
Now that I'm glad you mentioned it. Billy had he was at a COG meeting 2 months ago. An individual from Billington made a comment that the county is anti-business, don't want nothing. And he said, well, Billy said, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, we had a business that wanted to settle in Millington and couldn't get any cooperation. He didn't have a whole lot of answers
Had no
when he
answers.
said that, huh?
He had no answers.
Okay. Well, then the other day, an attorney, local attorney, said something to me about, you figured if somebody come here and wanted to put a fish farm up on Route 301.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, when he asked me, I said, I never heard anything about it. I never knew anything about it. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I didn't know anything about it, and the guy said that they were looking at a place on 301, and then they moved on to Queen Anne's County.
They did. We did work with them, and we worked with planning and zoning. Cindy Genther helped me with this. We located properties within Kent County, and we located zoning, and then they found a place in Queen Anne's County that suited better, quicker, cheaper, and that's where they went. But we definitely cooperated and did everything we could to accommodate their needs.
Well, cheaper we can't do anything about. However,
But the message we got was,
Of
or the
course.
message that come back to Billy first, and then an attorney, local attorney, mentioned to me if I knew anything about it. I said I never, being in 30 years in the seafood business, somebody said something about a fish farm would have got my attention. I would have remembered it, but I said I never heard anything about it. But he said that's the business that they were referring to. And, Billy or I neither one knew
Add anything,
about it.
Cindy? Because Cindy
But they
Cindy worked
indicated
with
it was
them.
because we run away.
It's not true.
That's what
Not
was-
at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Well, you don't have.
Package together of a number of sites, contacted the owners of those sites. We talked with planning and zoning to identify where at a large operation, it was not a small fish farm, we're talking 120,000 square feet. It's a big farm,
Right.
big operation. We identified where in Kent County, we put it from a planning and from a zoning operation. We put together sites, we talked to owners of properties that were within those sites, help them locate. And in the end, they found a property that was a whole lot cheaper, Queen Anne's County, than anything we thought. So,
Well, listen, I'm.
keep that.
And let me.
I had
it was
no.
a great opportunity, and by the way, when they came to us, it was because they were just about settled on a property in Warwick, Maryland,
Right.
and they came to me, and asked me if there was anything else around, and they were looking, but they were in their final decision. And that's how we got it. So,
Well, I'm glad of the explanation because I never thought for 1 minute that we were running anybody away from Kent County. But it's just amazing to me sometimes how the message gets.
that's right.
People
And
when they were talking to Billy, it was because we basically run them away or didn't want nothing.
And I guess the only thing we could have done was bought the property in order to make them stay, and that's not part of it.
Could I ask one favor? Out of all of this, there comes one, and I'm Cindy Genther. There comes one thing. Jamie does a fabulous job at what she does. She seeks out new employers to come here. She helps when we in the real estate community have customers or clients who want to move here. She's our go-to person. When you have a question, when somebody comes to you with a question like that, an attorney, a citizen of some sort, the first call needs to be to Jamie. Not to, say, oh gosh, I don't know anything about this. I'll find out and talk to her, because I can bet you she knows about it. She's usually half a step ahead of me.
Well, other than for a couple choice words I said to this individual, that was my next exact sentence, and I called her right after that. And then,
That's good.
yeah.
There you go. And I can tell you, for those of us who do commercial, who do a lot of commercial real estate in the area, she is invaluable to us as far as helping us put together incentive packages, marketing for that particular, and helping us meet with planning and zoning to find the right location for that particular type of business.
So you're not recommending a pay cut?
I'm recommending you look at
I'm
Jamie's
just kidding.
request as a return on the investment, there's an opportunity here to look at the amount of money and new businesses and existing business growth we've experienced here in Kent County as a result of what Jamie has been doing and what she can do with a little more strength behind her. I'll mention one thing. The Middletown bypass is due to be complete at the end of this year. We have seen tremendous inquiries, numbers of inquiries in coming to Kent County as a result of that roadway. I think she needs to have more clout to be able to come to you, to come to the state delegation, to go to whoever she does as an economic development director in responding to those things.
Well, and let me clarify, we agree, we also agree with you that Jamie does a good idea. The point I was trying to make is how some things spread throughout the community sometime, which are completely false. And people, it seems like people enjoy spreading bad information, inaccurate information, rather than, look, if that person holds an elected position, they should, before they go out and start bad-mouthing Kent County, they should have went to Jamie and asked what went wrong. When they said something to me, I didn't have the answers because I had never been involved in it. Nobody said anything to me about it. So it was, and which I'm not supposed to know every inquiry that comes to Jamie. But I hadn't heard it, said I hadn't heard it, and didn't think that, obviously, I didn't believe it was true to begin with, that Kent County didn't want them, especially, of all places, a fish farm in Kent County seemed like a perfect fit to me. But anyhow, it didn't work out. But there are people out there that would rather elaborate on some false information, things they haven't researched, than to figure it out and find out the facts.
And I think if we could all imagine how much further Kent County would be if we all shared the good things with the same intensity that we share the bad things, how much further ahead would we be? So we've got to overwhelm people with the positivity and try to drown out that negativity, because it's so infectious.
Superintendent to come in here the other night at the budget presentation and spent about 3/4 of the night telling how great our education system is and how a lot of people are envious of us. And then we got a group, another group that don't find anything positive about it, and they think they're helping the school system. Well, that's how people from the outside start thinking. I'm not moving to Kent County. They got the worst school system in the world.
That's like hanging out your dirty laundry.
Supporting exactly what's going on here. The one project alone, which is the KRM Dixon Valve build-out, I know personally Jamie spent about a year and a half steady on that project to leverage over $1 million, to help them with over $1 million leverage, to give them the
1.8
tax
million.
incentive, to give them the tax incentive, the go to legislation over in Annapolis. I mean, that one project alone that we could have lost to the state of Delaware, is a lot because of her and because of, of course, the Goodall family, et cetera. But there's so much work was put into that in order to keep them here. That one project alone to Kent County of retention of 350 jobs plus another 400 to 700 over a period of time when this project's completed.
And we didn't give away the farm.
No, it cost us a small fraction, and we worked hard with them, and we got to continue to work hard because they still have part of that project that they want some assistance with. But Jamie's been a big role in that. I mean, just played
Listen,
such a
economic development at best is about as slow as watching paint dry. It takes a long time to put these big projects together, but you just at the end it's worth the fight. But it takes a long time to put those kind of projects together. I remember the one project we had. Those people wanted to come here and build. I believe that was back in the Rolly Crow days, but we thought we had a thing that was going out to Vita Foods. We were all,
right.
I mean, Campbell Soup. We were all excited. Made a lot of trips to Easton and talked to these
That's
people.
right.
And then at the last minute, they threw their hands up.
I know I went over my allotted time, but I will say, having assistance in economic development, site selection is a main priority, and it's identifying those sites and having all of the details behind them. Currently, what we're doing is people are either coming to us or we're finding them, however they come to us, and then we're trying to fit projects in. The goal is to have all of that done ahead of time and market those properties to draw businesses in. And that takes a lot of time. That is not something I can do currently with the resources I have.
Question I have for you, and this is structurally. In some jurisdictions, tourism is part of economic development. What's your opinion?
My opinion is that there's lots of ways that we could collaborate together, but I think that's a discussion that should be had with Bernadette. She's been doing tourism for 16 years. I've been doing economic development for 4. And when I say that, I know there's some people in the community that have challenged that, but I didn't just start my career 4 years ago. I spent 20 years in business, and I have the experience. So I think it would be a discussion that should be had with everyone involved and talk about what works, what has worked, what hasn't worked, what would work, what wouldn't work. But I don't feel comfortable saying that because I don't know everything that she does on a daily basis, and I don't know the ins and outs of her job. And I can't speak to that, but I would say it would be worth discussing.
Okay. That's all I ask.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Go. Got it.
Before you start, if you had to say there was one reason why that company did not settle in Kent County and went to Queen Anne's, is it land prices?
Yes,
That was the difference.
yes.
Thank you.
They didn't need public water and sewer.
They did not need.
They did not need public water and sewer, which gave them a lot more flexibility.
Well,
These companies will not do that same way.
there are ways in which we could mitigate the cost of the land. It's water under the bridge, so to speak. Not saying we would.
Okay. Well, the finance office budget this year,
like the last number.
yeah, there's not really a whole lot to say. The salaries reflect the 3% raise. We haven't had any turnover, so that's good. The benefits are going down just because of changes in coverage selections. Our operating budget is going up $7. I honestly couldn't tell you where that is, but if you need to know, I can find it. And we don't have a capital request this year, so I really don't have any highlights. So that's
You're good.
finance budget in a nutshell. So moving on from there, I wanted to
Bored. You're right, that was pretty boring.
short and boring, yes, that's my goal. So I thought the best place to start was to look at the overview one more time. We've still had a couple things moving around. I had a couple more requests from outside agencies. I had a couple of numbers. We looked at the roads numbers again to make sure that we had them apples and apples. Last year, when we had the additional monies, we separated it into a grant fund, so to keep our baseline funding with the road surfacing in the general fund and then the additional monies out. So I think just to look at it one more time before we start to remember where we are. So,
Just so, hold on, Pat, just so you gentlemen know, I had a request yesterday from the municipality saying they read that we were getting an increase in our highway usage funds, help them do their streets in the town. I said, you might want to do the research a little further because you got a bigger raise.
Bigger
than
raise we
got,
did.
You know, and they,
Substantially bigger.
yeah, and they thought we allocated money to them. I said, no, it's a state allocation. So, and then they come back, oh, okay, that makes sense now. Okay, never mind.
so with those grant monies realigned, the takeaway from the revenue side is the new money for this year is $400,000, $399,252. So I'm sure that's a number that we want to keep in our minds. We've gone through the variances before, so I'll skip through that. On the expense side, I received a couple more late allocation requests. They've all been put in here, but you can see that the expenditure number of $52,451,000 is $5 million more than the revenues. So we're pretty much where we were. It's just kind of moved around a little bit. So if we look at the fund balance, we're projecting to end 18 with $1.5 million. If we were to fund everything as it sits right now, we would end FY19 with $304,000 in our fund balance, which would be $3.6 million below our target. And if we look at it in the non-recurring and the recurring pieces, which is, I think, the best way for us to look at it, the recurring spot, we need to take about $936,000 out of this to balance our recurring expenditures with our recurring revenue stream. On the non-recurring side, which is our capital projects and our capital expenditures, there's about a $2.6 million. And we also, we have the opportunity of financing some of those projects. And we really haven't looked at that side of the budget yet. So that's kind of our jumping off starting point for conversations. Now, the only piece that you've really gone through is the salaries. I don't know if you want to revisit that and start there, or if you want to start with the capital or the allocations, the parts you haven't seen.
Or if you want to revisit the fleet maintenance
Well,
discussion.
I think we go with the recurring budget first.
Okay, so
Start somewhere.
okay. So do we want to go revisit the personnel? Are you guys ready to make decisions on that, or do you want to see the other pieces first?
Personnel.
Personnel? Okay. All right. So. So I think the easiest thing to do is just do paper with the summary schedules. Some of it's public and some of it's not. So we can start with the new positions. Pass that down. Do you have
I
one?
have it.
Okay.
Mhm.
Sure. All right. So these were the new positions that were requested. Show this one up here, I think. I think everybody had made a case for that, and you had seen all the documentation. Not really sure if you want to just go down the list or if there's conversation about any of them, further conversation. This page is kind of split into the ones that are pending approval and the ones that have already been approved. So if you look at that bottom section, the 2 public works positions, the school resource officer, and the part-time water wastewater have already been approved in previous meetings. So those we really don't need to talk about. It's just the ones in the top section.
Where do you want to start?
Our office,
Just go down the list.
I'd say strike number 1. Administrative liaison.
Yeah. Do we have consensus, just so I can
To do what?
Strike.
strike that one?
And this would be a person to do what again? To work underneath of you, Shelley?
A lot of legislative, it would be the primary responsibility, but some of the other stuff where we have some gaps, ethics commission, some additional assistance with alcohol and tobacco support, grant writing.
When I first came into office, like you two, there was an additional person.
I think, what's the largest that the office has been?
I can remember there was the Janice Fletcher world. She was in Shelley's office right next to the county administrator's office, and she was in charge of she oversaw all the duties of the office. And then I've seen at least 3, maybe 4 outside and working in my time. I tell you, I am amazed that our office turns out what they turn out with just the 2 of them. It's a real.
Had it at 6, 7 minutes.
Huh?
Since I've been here, we've had as high as 6 in the office.
And that one, and I'm not even counting the other Shelley.
Clothier.
That's doing payroll. She's been brought out here just because there was
The office space.
There was office space, but
Right.
I can remember when there was a lot more.
Hold that right now. Let's see.
That's fine with me. Let's hold it for the time being.
The next one, I apologize, it's on the top, but I think it's
It's actually on tonight's agenda.
on tonight's agenda.
Yeah.
It's paid for by the program.
It's paid for by the program.
To
Right.
give and to approve that one.
Leave that one in? Okay, the correctional officer for the detention center?
The pretrial CO, as the pretrial program grows, they're envisioning a need for a dedicated staff person for pretrial. Right now, the duties
The only
are-
thing about that though, with that, I do know that we're housing a lot less people too. So I'm not surely convinced that that's at the top of the
And Herb
agenda.
said he could still sustain,
Yes.
so.
And it's something to think about is over the course of the next year, you could really evaluate which costs are reduced, which are the variable costs versus fixed costs by having less inmates, and if we continue to sustain less inmates.
Okay.
That one's gone.
Consensus to take that one out?
I would, because of what has been stated in the community with Glean and Rock Hall, I would support 2 of the EMTBs and the 2 part-timers.
I will say this, there is definitely a problem out there. This weekend, and listen, I don't mean this in any disrespectful way whatsoever to the volunteers, because the same thing that's happening with them is happening, what's happened with our school system. You just don't have the young people today to draw from to find these people. I can remember when we first started this EMT program, we hired John Longest. He was the first guy we hired, and he was a police officer / paramedic. And companies were afraid that we were getting ready to take over the ambulance system and the program in the county, and we assured them all we're trying to do is help you. We have built $1.5 million into that program, and what the problem is that they just don't have the volunteers to help with. So this past weekend, 2 different times, one of them I get a notice on my phone when the alarm goes off, where it's at and what the problem is. Somebody had chest pains. The ambulance whistle blew 4 times. So there is a problem out there, man. If that was me waiting, I'd be upset. And I think we need to give them some help. So Billy, I would go right along with what you said, but I don't know.
I wouldn't necessarily go to the part-time.
I'm fine with that too. I believe, because the part-time is just gonna be to fill in when the full-times, and maybe we'd be better off to take the 3 EMTs, and when it gets, maybe we can use some other people, because these ain't the only EMTs we have in the system.
Nope.
No, these will be EMT basics, so that's that first level of EMT. In general, we have the advanced,
I guess the thing that the point I was trying to make, as well as my colleagues are trying to make the same point. We got, what, 50-60% senior citizens in this county. When that ambulance whistle blows, it needs to get on the road. And if we need to help do that, we got to step up to the plate and do it. Because I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
it's Rockhall's got a problem. They tell me, I'm just going by what they say, that Lena's got a similar problem, and Betterton might have the similar. Those 3 areas. Now, a lot of times that whistle blows 4 times down home if they can't get out, and the rescue squad has to come all the way down there. It's
And by then, you've lost a big chunk of time. The response time is.
Letters on my desk right now, people that have complained about that, and down in Rockhall, in my office down there, they've raised that issue. So I'm all for adding 3 EMTs. I think that is a good idea.
Should we stop there at EMTBs?
Part of it's supply and demand, and we don't have a whole.
I know
The paramedics are already implied. So right now, you have each of the volunteer fire companies have a group of people that are trained at that EMT basic level. I think what they're hoping from is to pull from some of those and make them into paid positions.
Hiring 3 local people, I believe,
So,
most likely, which is a good thing. I mean, if we're going to hire, I hope we can hire locally, and I hope it helps solve this problem for them. Because they do a great job. It's just that they're getting so darn short-handed now.
and in general, this isn't 100% true, but in general, when the ambulance gets out with volunteers, you have an EMT that's on that ambulance. Some of our fire companies have ALS support, only because they might work in other jurisdictions, or maybe they're overachievers and want to volunteer times 20. But most of the time, it's going to be staffed by an EMTB.
3 positions?
Consensus on 3? Full-time?
Yep.
Okay. The Economic Development Administrative Assistant?
I'm a yes for that, but I'd also like to not necessarily do it, but I wouldn't want to see the 2 departments merge back together, because I think that was not being done properly before. But I think to operate the tourism office with the same staffing they had originally as both departments shouldn't be either. I think, they've had one position leave. We could transfer that position, Jamie's
Tourism?
from tourism,
Okay.
and just have Jamie have that person, and Bernadette will. She has the same structure when she had 2 departments as what she has currently, and I don't see that Jamie's taking on a big load off of Bernadette, and I think we could just move that position to Jamie.
Does Jamie have room, physical space for an additional body?
That depends. If you go with Commissioner Short's model of having 2 and 2, right now there's currently office space for 4. So if you went with 2 and 2, I think that there's office space. Something else that can be considered throughout this process is we do have.
Now, right? She's got.
Well, she has 2, but One
She has
just
an
left.
assistant director and an
Okay,
admin.
it was her and two employees,
Exactly.
two under her. So she's gonna still have one, and we give one to
One to Jane.
Bernadette. I mean,
Something that could be discussed is the courthouse annex.
Hold on a minute. I got another thing for that. Just hold on.
Oh, well,
Bring that up.
There's a couple things for that, but what I'm saying is I think that there's sufficient space. If you're talking about going from 3 and 1 to 2 and 2, I think anyway, you cut it. There's
We're
sufficient
adequate
office space.
upstairs.
Whether it's upstairs, reconfiguring downstairs, there's a big office
Yeah, right
with
down
planning.
planning and zoning.
That could, maybe something could be reconfigured there, or there's the annex, depending on.
don't mention the annex. We're going to save millions of dollars by not mentioning the annex.
But the point is, there's
I tell you,
space.
if her wishes or opinions come true, that there could be a lot of, I mean, we're, with our comprehensive plan, we've sort of rolled out that 301, 291 intersection and said we're open for business. I mean, I think it's a good time to add somebody to Jane, give her a helping hand.
There's also the possibility sometimes we need to think outside the box, and we could reconfigure the walls on the 3rd floor, and or the 1st floor, and or other office space that won't be mentioned.
Well, okay.
Including the annex.
You
I'm
want to
not
include
kidding.
it once I tell you?
No, I know.
So am I understanding that we're going to say no to this, and we're going to transfer a already existing position?
Existing
Yes.
position to,
Okay.
And just to clarify, with the full-time EMT basic and the 2 part-time that you're not approving, is that a maybe or is that a no?
It's enough.
Okay. Thanks.
Not this year.
State's Attorney's Office, they're looking to make that part-time position full.
I'm going to say no.
It ain't broke.
Consensus? Yes. Okay. Water Wastewater Services Division Chief.
Now, this would be somebody that's going to work under Wayne.
This would be this would be somebody on the equivalent of a Marty Holden or a Jim Wright or a Dan Voschel who would head that division.
Okay.
Temporarily.
And we still have a public works officer.
Director.
Well, look, we are advertising for a public works director.
Right. And right now, we have temporarily, we have an acting division chief for water wastewater because we've been using the superintendent in that position.
Should we wait to see who we hire for
Director.
Wayne's position? Would we postpone it till we see what happens there?
Absolutely.
See who we get?
So that one would be a no?
Right.
However, if the new public works director comes in and says, okay, we need this division chief, I don't know how you put a space holder in the budget.
Well, I don't think you do.
I don't think you do. I think you evaluate it when that request comes in.
I would think it would probably be at least 6 months, wouldn't you think? I mean, of this person coming in and evaluating before they...
Okay.
It's only been 2 years so far, so.
Okay.
All right. So I guess,
And the 4 at the bottom are already
Yeah.
Yeah,
rolling.
they're done.
There's people in those positions.
all right. So for the next group, I don't know if we have to close it down. These involve specific salary requests for individuals. I don't know, Shelley?
It depends. I mean, you guys could talk, or we could start and close session next time.
Well, I think most of those requests were done a dog, so to speak. I mean, I don't like the way that's been done for the last couple of years, and I don't like it even more so than it came in this year. The consensus is to keep that salary grades changing in the right direction, and we can't continue just to throw 5,000 or 10,000 at a certain employee. So I don't support that at all.
Do you want us, I mean, I think one of the things we kicked around was looking at how it would be if we distributed it based on the evaluations. I think they probably have enough of them back in the HR that we could probably figure out what that bell curve would look like.
See, and that's what we had talked about a couple of weeks ago, and
But we really didn't firm up We really didn't come to a definite decision on how to move
That
forward.
was what, a 1% COLA and then a 2%,
Any combination
or
thereof.
whatever it is. We're basing on a 3% salary increase.
3% total.
Right, total. So if it's 1% COLA, 2% based on merit or job performance.
Which could potentially be a 4% increase for a specific individual, depending on how the
If they
pieces
score right.
fall.
If they score right.
Or we can just do flat across the board, but,
But the argument's been that flat across the board is not working.
Well, how do you reward somebody who's excelling in their job?
I mean, performance.
Maybe we look at it the other way. Maybe it should be everybody that's doing a good job gets a certain thing, except the ones that's not, and they get less instead of.
Well, it's basically what we're saying, 1% and then 2% based on that performance. 1% is guaranteed because that way it keeps the scale of salaries going up regardless.
With inflation.
Yeah, with inflation, where somebody new starting out down here, then that's going to separate that gap from new hire versus them.
right, yes, the best way to work with the grade and step system is to split it, to raise the step and move people, or, raise the whole scale up and then move people into the scale. Because otherwise you have clumpage at the beginning of the scale. If you just constantly keep raising the scale, everybody ends up at the beginning of the scale. So there's just no, right now, ever since we hit the recession and we stopped using the evaluations as a basis, we haven't landed on a formal method to allocate these other than straight across the board, and now these other requests are starting to trickle in.
It's tough to do because really a lot of it is based on personalities. A lot.
How much can be subjective versus objective? There are a couple increases in here that I would say on behalf of the department heads that are asking for them may be market-driven, such as the sheriff's office.
Oh,
They're
They have a separate scale.
right, but and they're based on promotions.
Well, not all of them.
Well, yeah, that's true because there's
Right, I'm talking about the few.
yeah, and I didn't understand why they were coming in so high. What was his reason for that?
What our neighbors do.
Yeah.
Other local jurisdictions where they start there. But one of the things that we've been around and around about, I mean, some jurisdictions hire some non-full-time deputies in the sheriff's office to do specific tasks like school resource officer, and then there are others that just reassign them.
Well, I think those positions get the same normal raise or whatever we do with.
Oh, the SROs?
No, not the SROs. Talking about his first two choices,
Oh.
like courthouse and. That's what-
Well, we have 2 SROs and 1 courthouse.
But again, I think it should be based on the same pay everybody else. So, I mean, why are you throwing out a?
But right now, they're
7.
not
Well, they should.
they're not
They
being.
should get
So,
3%
the-
like everybody else.
But,
Or 1 or 2, whatever.
but I think what you're saying is start them or have them be in line with the current deputies, right? The other deputies, and they're not.
No.
No, I'm not saying. I mean,
No.
no, I'm saying it's two different, totally. Like the one request for again, courthouse is. You know, that's a. Like I say, I don't know how much you lie, but that's an individual that's already retired from the county government, sitting in a position with a second option, and then to have such a large increase put on that, I don't understand why. I mean, there's just because Queen Anne's County does it doesn't mean we have to do it. I mean,
No, it just would keep them competitive. Some of those positions keep them competitive with the neighbors.
I think just a standard salary increase, they'd be included in that.
I agree with that.
Good.
okay, so
And
Standard salary.
do you want to look at splitting the increase? Basically, let's
No,
just
the
call
one
it 3%
state where-
into a COLA and a merit
I think that's
increase.
the only way we're going to fix our problem by doing that.
So-
You guys used to do it.
Oh, not necessarily, right?
did.
It just like that?
yeah,
Okay.
it was just that simple. You had the evaluation and there were 5 levels, and if you meets expectation, you got the COLA, and if you got the next level, I think you got 1% more. And if you got the next level up, you got 2% more than the COLA. Everybody who at least met expectations got the COLA, and then if people didn't meet expectations, then it fell into whatever the disciplinary policies were for that. Not sure if they got the COLA or not, quite honestly. I think almost everybody has to get the COLA because the scale moves. So even if you're performing poorly,
Well, and that's 1%, but then your evaluation determines what you do with the
Yes.
other 2%. I mean,
Yes.
so if they don't have a grade.
We have done that before.
Right.
yes, we did that for a couple of years, several years, I think.
At some point, we just got to stop changing the whole thing every time somebody comes in with these,
Well,
special.
that is a lot of what these are driven by, is you have somebody who's excelling, and how do you reward them? So not all of them,
Yeah, okay.
but a lot of these are, that's what the department head
The
would say.
promotional ones should be automatic. I mean, if the sheriff wants to promote from a.
Absolutely.
You know,
They meet their time or training
As long as
requirements.
they met the requirements, same thing
And,
with Danny.
right, MEO1 to
If they met the
MEO2.
requirements, What we got in place to go from an
It's a
MOE1 to
no-brainer.
MOE2.
That's
Two or
built in
3
career.
years.
Built in, built in.
Yeah, promotions are different than
Within the grade.
yeah.
So we'll look at some of those options and bring them back?
Okay.
Okay. All right, so would you like to look at capital or allocations?
Allocations. Capital would be easier. Allocations would be tougher.
How many more weeks do we have to fix this? 2?
Well, we're actually a little ahead of schedule because of the way that we did the meetings this year, so we can talk about calendar.
In general, we usually have the public hearing at the end of May, right?
Public hearing is usually the first Tuesday in June, and we adopt the second Tuesday, which backs us right up against the legislative deadline.
We can move that up a week.
So if it depends really on how quickly you guys think that you can come to these final decisions. If we can wrap it up,
I think it's quicker than.
We can do that. Keep on moving right along.
okay. All right. So this is structured by the highest to lowest dollar request. So the largest request that we received from an outside agency was from the library. They're asking for a 5% overall increase. They have a 3% salary increase built in. They also are anticipating an increase in their health insurance. And the books and the audiovisual materials have usually been purchased through other revenue sources, the foundation, grants, and so they would like to fund some of it through their general operating.
I would say they need to continue to find that funding.
We do the salary and we do the insurance.
Yeah.
Okay, consensus? Yes? Okay. All right, I'll have to get a dollar figure on that. Okay, Kent Center. Let me just give you a little background on this. Okay, Kent Center got $55,000 allocation in FY18. However, it really didn't all go to Kent Center. Part of it is a mandate to the Department of Mental Health and Hygiene, which has been in place since I came in 1995. I went all the way back and looked. So what it is it's based, it's one of those formula-driven things where our allocation is going to stay frozen. It's to support adult daycare.
Disabled, developmentally delayed adults.
Thank you.
And that is legislatively mandated. The amount that we've been sending to the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, it is frozen since your 1984 allocation. So that has not changed. Dollar amount.
Dollar. Same amount.
It goes to
since the
DD,
hurricane.
even though it filters through Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, it goes to DDA, and that is in annotated code. Every county's allocation has been frozen. So when you saw 55 up here last year for Kent Center, this 20,000 plus automatically gets lopped off and sent to Department of Health. So they actually only received last year $34,868.
And so now, they'd like that $20,132 that we were sending to the Department of Mental Health to go to them.
Well, they didn't have it in the first place.
They did not.
No.
I want to make
But
sure that's
they're-
very clear.
But they're asking
But
for
they're
an increase to this 64, which 9 of it would be capital.
van,
So
yes.
they're asking for an operating increase to 55,000.
Right. So it's,
We just want to make sure that that's completely understood by everybody.
I'm not really sure.
I get this mixed up sometimes. This is the adult daycare out
No,
No.
no.
Kent Center out there.
Kent Center, out
Out
Shield
behind the
Road.
shopping center.
Kent Center, this is separate than the adult daycare that the Department of Health provides.
That we help buy the buses for.
Yes.
I think at some point it had to do, I mean, DDA is a heavy funder of the Kent Center, and I'm not sure where that allocation comes from, but somewhere, I mean, they were tied together for some reason, that it was for a similar purpose or a similar.
So that money don't come back to Kent Center?
Well, indirectly. Basically, I mean, we can't stop that 20,000 at this point. That is legislatively mandated. But somehow that triggers a gate opening for Kent Center to receive money from DDA. I know.
Yeah, so the operating increase truly would be from 34,868 to 55.
What are they doing with it? What's 9,000 per van? Is that
They want to buy a new van. That's a capital request.
for 9,000 bucks?
That will be the portion.
Is this
Oh,
like
that's just
to
a
secure a
portion of the
grant
van.
or something like that?
I don't know if it's a grant, but they're 9,000 short on a new van.
But that's capital, so we could,
Yeah.
that should go under
And
our
it's
capital
not-
budget,
and
not
it's-
this.
Well,
Well, but it's an allocation.
Well, yeah, but you don't give them.
They're not asking for it next year.
I understand.
we
Well,
would separate it out. We usually keep it as a separate capital line in there. I just wanted you to be able to look at the whole request. You're right, it should show up in the capital.
What is 3% more than, of the 34,868?
I didn't bring my phone with me. $900?
I'm not allowed to have my phone here.
$1,000?
Yeah, it would be about $1,000.
I'd support meeting them 50% of that.
10,000?
Give them the 9 for the van and 10. I'm good with that. I tell you, it's hard to say no to that people out there. I mean, they do just a fantastic job out there with them.
And I know that they struggle because legislatively, even from the federal government, they get more and more and more mandates. So,
Not just mandates, they get whacked by the funding from them.
Yes.
They mandate
Yes,
them and
they do.
then
They
whack
do.
them.
Okay, $10,000.
In total for the
Plus
No.
the van.
Plus that, so it's
10,000 for
19.
operations.
19.
Okay, thank you. I missed that part. Okay. All right, Health Department. They came in and presented about this post-adjudication supervised treatment program.
It's a good sales pitch.
Cost us $20,000.
Right. I'd have to support that.
Well,
Yeah.
that's controlled by the courts. I think that happened.
I think the whole world supports that.
they gave it. I mean, if the guy does as good as what, Harris was saying and Dr. Spencer, because just the amount of people that have succeeded at it was pretty high.
Yeah, it was
I thought it'd been that high.
an impressive presentation. Delmarva Community Services. So their request of $131,000 is exactly what they asked for last year. However, we flat funded them last year.
I'd say flat
at
fund them.
the FY17 level. So they're coming again, and they were also in here last week and kind of made their case.
Split it in half. Gotta give them a little,
Give me?
yeah. Come on, Billy. Gotta give them a little cost. Look, they're the best we got for now, and you gotta,
Yeah, we don't have any other community transportation service.
Consensus of 8,000? Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. Chesapeake College. There's a 2% overall increase into their operating budget. There's no change in our enrollment, so we're funding the same percentage, so it's really a 2% increase to us. And then there's a 5,300. We're good? Okay.
Give the guy a chance.
and we might not have a choice on that if three of the other counties do it, then we have to do it too.
I had talked to the acting president. He seemed to have thought them and Caroline County did come to
Okay, great.
an agreement. So
Okay, Upper Shore Aging. They were also in here to present, and basically their $10,000 request is $5,000 for dining room chairs, 4.6 for the Meals on Wheels program, and 1.4 thousand supplies.
I would go along with the 4.6 for Meals on Wheels. Now convince me the other part.
There's an extra 1,000
Is
in
the
there.
dining room chair, is that for the Amy Lynn Fair Center?
Oh, I think it's 3.6 for the Meals on Wheels. Thank you, Shelley.
Okay, 3.6.
Yes. Yes. 3.6, sorry about that.
I would agree with William, and then if they can't find the revenue to do like the chairs, then they could come back and ask for it out of contingency or something after the first year, if they see they can't find funding from other sources.
Okay, so 3,600.
CASA?
Flat. Or the 10,000, so they're requesting the same as 2 years ago.
Right, and they reference an increase in the Kent County Children Served, and I think they're also asking to pick up a piece of the insurance audit equipment and supplies
But
costs to run the program.
Right, but what they're going down, we gave them 20,000 last year, they're going back to 10.
They were at 10 and 17.
Right?
They want
18.
20.
No,
Just to clarify, I think
Oh, I'm sorry, jeez.
our headings are, yeah, it should be
Yes.
FY 18 and FY 19.
18 they had 20, now 19.
No,
I'm sorry, the headings are wrong on the second page. It should be 18 in the first column, 19 in the second column. Sorry, Billy.
So this past year, they were funded 10,000, but this year's request is 20.
I'd say keep them at where they were, 10,000.
but they're increasing the number of children served in the county.
I don't think if they give any stats in here.
I mean, the amount of children they should be being served, but they have other funding sources too. I mean, we started this with them 4 years ago, and the 1 year they didn't ask for anything, and they come back and ask for it again, so, I mean,
Okay, so here's the best quantification of the numbers in here. It says in FY 2017, Kent County children represented 6% of our child caseload. This number has increased in FY 18. Thus far in the current fiscal year, Kent County children represent 8% of the total child caseload. At the same time, however, income from within Kent County represents less than 2% of our revenues. So I think that's probably the best articulation of the numbers.
So actually their caseload for Kent County kids just went up by 2%.
Right, and only,
It increased their budget by 2%.
Oh, their total budget is only coming from Kent County 2%. So
Yeah, they're saying
I think
they
they're
have a
indicating,
a 6% shortfall between the revenues and the expenses.
well, but even at that, at 6%, that's $600, not
no,
10,000.
out of their total budget, not our budget. Not the allocation from us, but their total
But if we use
budget.
a sliding scale, the amount of money we give them, which we didn't used to give them at all, they were not a qualifier of what we did. We started that 4 years ago. 1 year we did it, 1 year we didn't. They didn't need the money. Then they come back, 10,000. Now they're jumping into 20,000. I'm saying they could get. I think they can get their funding as well elsewhere. And the only reason I'm saying that is because we're running $956,000 in the hole. You know, so 10,000 not much, but
I would say,
So their current funding is 2% of their total, our current funding is 2% of their total revenue.
Kent County represents less than 2% of their total revenue.
okay,
So if you double it, it would be 4%.
but still,
But 8%
on their
of the
caseload
workload.
from Kent County only went up 2%.
Right, but it's 8% of their workload.
Wait a minute, if the number of kids only went up 2%, how can that be?
because you've gone
8%?
from 6 kids. That one extra kid or 2 kids is
They-
the 20,000 citizens in population is high on them. It's not that they're serving 10 extra kids or 15 extra kids. It's
Right.
just
See,
such a nominal number.
I don't think it's percentage of our population, it's
No.
the percentage.
Of their program, so it's 6% of their child caseload. So what they're saying is that that our kids make up 6% of their caseload, and they get 2% of their revenue from
Why
Kent
don't you
County.
call them and ask them how many kids they represented last year from Kent County?
Do that.
Then we can definitely.
Why don't
know
we
what
give them
6%.
$12,000 and move on?
Move on.
I know, is it?
Ron,
$12,000
there you go.
and move on.
Yeah.
Consensus? Okay.
it. Don't have to worry about it.
Jack, you want to raise this year? Well, I'm not. I was going to talk to Dan for you.
Okay, the Watermen's Association. Now this one,
Let me explain this one.
thank you.
For like 30 years, that's what they've got, except last year. Last year, they gave it to the Clean Chesapeake Coalition. They wanted to help us so we would stay in the Clean Chesapeake. So last year, the Clean Chesapeake Coalition, we funded $9,000, and we used their $8,000. They just don't want to,
They want it back.
they want to hold their place in this budget. So what they've said is, if they'd like to see us stay in it another year, or maybe, I think in another year, we'll maybe be done, or at least we'll have our mission, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. They said we'd like to hold, and so they want to be there after we're gone. If we can stay in the Clean Chesapeake another year and put up the 9, they'd like to have the 8, and they'd like to send it to the Clean Chesapeake Coalition, just to hold.
Oh, okay.
The same thing. It's going to be $17,000, but they'd like to hold their
So we're
place.
only going to give Clean Chesapeake 9.
9,
They're going to give
and
them
they're going to
their
put
8
the
back.
other 8 together,
Just so
make
it's funnels.
17.
So that part was lost on me because I have the Clean Chesapeake in here for 17, so I should make them 9.
9.
You can cut that back to 9.
But I thought the total allocation went down from 25 to 17 last year.
But we didn't give.
Put up 9 and they put up 8, that's 17.
We just took.
We didn't give them an allocation last
Right,
year, and we
exactly.
put up the 17.
Right.
So 17 total. Now, the request, the request was a range of 17 to 25, so I think we will be getting a formal letter somewhere.
It is what I said.
Okay,
I mean, I know what the
Okay.
Clean Chesapeake,
Okay.
the budget's 7, what they're asking 17.
And then they'll
And
pay
we give
the
them
8.
9, they're going to give them the other 8.
okay, perfect.
And it makes them show that they're doing something, that they're supportive of the program.
The volunteer fire companies is based on
Statutory requirement.
that.
Done.
Soil conservation, they're asking mostly for salary increases. They have a range of salary increases in here because some of them are federal workers, some of them are state workers, some of them are county workers. So the salary increases range from between 2 to 5%.
I think they should fall right where ours falls.
So do you want to put a number on that right
I think
now?
their
Or?
salary should be the same increase we have, whatever we decide
Oh,
for.
yes.
Fine.
Yes.
Okay, I'll find out what that number is. Okay, SCORE is a new request, and you heard Jamie talk about that a little bit.
It's a new request this year, but we had done it in the past.
We had,
So, again, with the things that are changing around here and sitting on the economic development, I know they participate a lot with people here doing plans, so I don't have a problem with that.
consensus to leave that in? Okay. Okay, another new one. Eastern Shore Area Health Education Center. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with them. I wasn't.
The ones that came in and they want to change, it's almost, they're gravitating to help with the tourism field, with all the different, that's not this one where they're,
No.
This is the health.
What are they?
I can't even say their name. They're going to continue to provide health education training and workforce development to recruit and retain health professionals in our local community.
So
This includes
doctors, nurses.
yeah, but it's also all the food, organic style, like, yeah, because they presented at the Economic Development Group.
The FFF, that 3 Fs? No.
Where
No.
they're,
That's
okay,
something different.
say it again.
This is the Eastern Shore Area
talking
Health
about?
Education Center.
Okay, but say what their cause is again.
Okay, they're going to provide health education training and workforce development to recruit and retain health professionals in our local communities. This includes developing online training capabilities as we work to develop a multi-grade pipeline program fostering workforce development serving the citizens in our region.
We know we had a shortage of health professionals here.
I'm telling you, it's tied to this group. I'm almost certain it's tied to this group that they're bringing it all together. What's it? Yoga, all these sort of things. Yeah, like the Health
Wellness.
Alliance.
No, this is something completely different. This is something that's all across
Then where did it
the
come
Eastern
from?
Shore. I think it's been here. I know it's here. Chip McLeod has served on the board for the past several years, and it's been in existence. They meet a lot of times on the lower shore, but it promotes this mission throughout
Where
the
did they
Eastern
get
Shore.
funding
Couldn't answer that.
They said they'd be happy to come and answer questions, but they clearly say that the funds will be used for continuing education program. It sounds like they want it to be an online training program for health careers and workforce development.
Can't see that.
Okay, the Arts Council. They basically are looking to expand programming, and they're going to be relocating to a new headquarters. And they're looking for $4,500 more to make that happen.
A little modest increase.
Say the 10.
I can go with either one.
10.
10.
10? So 2,000 increase. St. Martin's Ministries. They also have been at $8,000 for a long time, and they're asking, and again, they give us a lot of stats on how many bed nights they have for Kent County women and children. And basically what they're saying they're asking for the increase for is they want to make an effort to increase the residential staffing so that there's 2 members on duty instead of 1. It's the largest priority to their funding request. But they, I guess in 2017, they served 5 adults from Kent County and 8 children. The total bed nights were 4,511.
It's the only service of its kind in the area.
Yeah, I'm
support it.
pretty supportive of that. Let's give it to them.
Yep.
But
Yep.
nobody has a problem.
And then we had another new request from Crossroads Community. And this one was for a very specific need. They, let's see,
I don't care for Kent County. You're not gonna get much dental
I
care
remember-
for $2,000.
For $2,000.
Right, but I remember when, maybe it's transportation or something like that. I remember under the local management board, when Candy Edwards was part of it, they established a whole new dental program for kids, so why would we have to assist? I mean, it's pretty substantial, the program that, through the local management board, they, and the GOC that they developed.
I'm not sure. We don't fund any program
Right, we
like
don't.
that now.
No, we don't. They comes out of GOC, so you're saying the local management board don't?
We don't have any funding that comes through our current programming for that. I will say that Crossroads Community is a mental health organization, so it's probably not children.
well, it says that today they serve adults, children, and adolescents
Right.
with medical assistance who have a behavioral health diagnosis consistent with the state's Behavioral Health Administration's priority population designation. Oh my goodness.
Say it this way.
So
A
they're
few
saying-
years ago, there was a child, and I'm not sure if it was in Queen Anne's or Talbot County, died because they did not get dental care.
Well, they're saying that the budget for their Kent County people is $8,000. They're asking the town for $2,000. They're asking us for $2,000, and they're gonna kick in the rest.
Again, though, a lot of these folks go through Medicaid, so why isn't that funded through Medicaid?
I don't know. Is dental care through Medicaid? I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
I'm not sure.
I don't know the answer to that.
Maybe you can find out a little more
Would
information.
you like more information?
You want more information? That's all.
Okay.
Because ask them about the Medicaid and that sort of thing, because a lot of our special needs or, disability, they're already funded through the program, so why that wouldn't transfer right into dental care as well?
And honestly, $8,000 isn't a whole lot of dental care. So maybe it's the matching funds for Medicaid.
Maybe
I don't know.
ask them.
I will get more information. Okay, the extension office. They're asking for $2,900. And I think when he came in, there was some confusion. The salary increase is 2%. It's not 2% from the state and 2% from the county. It's 2%, and we have part of that cost, and the state has part of that cost. So the total salary increase is 2%. And then they'd like $1,000 to go towards the horticultural program.
Sabine's program.
Yes.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yes. Okay. Imagination Library.
Don't imagine they got it. That's imagination.
Tell them call Ronnie. They'll fill them all in with imagination.
This is the Dolly Parton actually Imagination Library program that this funds. This came through the LMB. It's a new request. It sends a free book each month to Kent County children 0 to 5. And they're looking for $600 to go towards this program.
Right, this used to be funded exclusively through the strategic goals were put into place, and they have filled in the vast majority of the gaps in funding through a PNC. PNC, I think, funds part of it, and various donations. So what they're asking Rosie is the one who spearheads this one.
Out of money. She hadn't had a hit lately, so.
So this is a program where they do, so any child that's signed up gets a free book every month. So
Why
she's,
can't
And the-
it still go through the LMB funding of some sort?
because it doesn't support one of the 4 strategic goals as defined by GOC. So
Then why can't it go to the library?
the library just doesn't have the staff to go out and recruit, request funding. Rosie's been to the towns, for example, to help fund it. It's total of only $5,000 or something like that
They
for
want
the whole
$600.
year.
But again, wouldn't we have a library in here that's talking about what great things they're doing? Why are we going to support an additional, even though it's only $600? Why?
Rosie will be here tonight, and you can ask her.
You won't ask her.
Okay. Information.
All right.
Okay, and the last request for additional funding is the museums of Kent County, and they were very non-specific, so I'm not really sure what okay, they're scheduled to come in this evening as well,
Okay.
so we'll hold off on that one. Okay. The rest of these are 0,
Except for the Humane Society.
except for the Humane Society is going down $176, and I will make that change to the Clean Chesapeake Coalition, so they'll reflect an $8,000 decrease.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the allocations. Okay,
I think we ought to just go ahead and give them little 0 to 5-year-olds $600 worth of books, so we.
That's right.
The library's never had it in their budget. It was funded by the LMB. It just kind of dangled
This
after.
whole thing goes through the library.
No, it does not go through the library.
Why not?
They don't run it. The LMB retained control of the program.
So this money will be going to the LMB.
I think it will actually go directly to Imagination Library.
yeah, I think
So
that's,
it won't go into the LMB budget, but it will literally go to this bigger organization who sends the books. I mean, Rosie doesn't sit up there with little stickers and sending them out, but
from Rosie. Are people using it? Or I mean, if you can sell all imaginary books you want, and that's exactly what it is.
Imaginary
if the
books.
if the
They're
parent,
real books.
But if the parents don't open up this imaginary book and give their kids something to look at, then it just goes out in the cyberworld.
what performance measures are you using to evaluate the
Right.
Is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay. You can answer.
I mean, and how do you even track it? How do you send out an email with imaginary book on it?
No,
That's all it is. It's an imaginary
it's a
book.
real
and
book.
you're but the expectation of having somebody open that email so they're
No, not email, book.
but it's coming through a damn email, isn't it?
No,
it's a
it's
real
a real
book.
It's a real book.
You get
So,
a real book.
yeah, a real book goes in the mail.
I thought it was electronic.
No.
No,
Oh,
they
no.
send you a book.
Oh,
It's not an imaginary
that's
book.
yeah, I don't know how many books.
It's a real children's book.
Right.
Jack, you ever got one?
I don't know, but I'm pretty much you just said
Thanks.
Commissioner
That's your
Short
imagination.
Commissioner
Jack.
Short
refuses to fund imaginary books.
Away from the 0 to 5-year-olds.
Thanks,
I think we better move along.
Capital?
Capital projects. Okay, so the first column shows what we funded in the current year. The second column shows the projects that are requested for 19, that total $2 million. And then I showed FY '20. I didn't know that we needed to see the whole 5-year outlook. But we're really focusing on what we want to fund in that FY '19 column. So the first one is the courthouse, and
Okay. I had a meeting with the judge the other day, and I was able to talk to Ronnie briefly about it down to the tremendous thing. Judge is, he don't want to see us spend $11, $12 million at this point. He walked through the facility. There's probably $30,000 worth of just cosmetic things that he would like to do up there. He would like to move the law library out of the second floor and over to the annex building, downsize the library because it just gets minimal amount of use now because of electronics, but they're mandated to have one. Move it over to the annex, move the situation that we have with the court down in the third or in the basement that sometimes has
A visiting
occasional water or
judge.
something. Visiting judge and the orphans court or whatever's down there too. Don't they
No.
meet down there?
Orphans Court's on the second floor. It's either the first or second
I
floor.
went to an orphans court there years ago, but he said just move that up to where the library's at now, and then just go through and maybe do some, we're just in conversation, do dry lock, whatever we can do to preserve. There's very little mold showing downstairs, and if there's no people down there, then, and you go through and we hire somebody to do it professionally and clean the place up, maybe you can get rid of the walls that are in there now. Or, right, but and it's clean.
It didn't work.
But there's not a whole lot wrong there. He says we can probably get another 10 years out of what his goals and objection is, and it saves $750,000 this year and $10 to $12 million to build this thing. So for a few $100,000, we could do something right and still maintain the courthouse for another X number of years before that demand's there. So I have no way supporting that, by doing the walkthrough. There's minimal amount of, like I was telling him the other day, it's much more important to get our emergency service people out, dispatch out from there and spend that money wisely than it is to nobody down there in the basement, and just rectify it, just fix what we have to fix.
Right. He's estimating that if we move the law library and the visiting judges' quarters and operation into the annex, that potentially rearranging of space inside, it
Fixes the situation?
Why don't we have Jim meet with the judge and put it all in writing so we can all understand exactly what they're asking for over there, and then we'll have something.
Yeah. I mean, it's,
Because there's also the issue of defendants. How to handle.
and the security of
right,
the
and that's
vestibule.
why
Right.
the budget was a little higher, 'cause some of that, putting some security things in place, part of that budget by utilizing still the same space, but make it more efficient and better. When
I agree. Let Jim.
Jim go meet with him and put what you just basically what you was outlined to you and put it in writing, and so we got something to go by, and then if we get ready to move on, we could get some estimates on
Right.
that type of proposal.
I mean, he went through and got proposal on like the basic painting, cosmetic kind of stuff, and he's got all that already at hand, but, which he'd like to move, more quickly on that kind of stuff, but the rest of the program between now and
Right.
Painting is not a capital expense.
He had a request, there's some offices that were wallpapered,
Yeah,
20
strip it
years
down
ago,
and all
or,
that kind of stuff.
to strip that off, paint the jury room, basic, very facelift cosmetic types of things. Right.
But I don't think any of that's in there.
Right
No,
now
'cause he
it's
hasn't
not.
proposed it, but if
he
he
put a
did-
work order in
Right.
to our Public Works, and they said that's above and beyond our capabilities, so they've asked him
And I think
to.
he said he got estimates, it's upwards from like right around $12,000 to $15,000 to do all that. And
That's
we
minor.
could even move that out of contingency this year if you wanted to move forward and get it done.
3 quotes.
Yeah, I think he's got several quotes.
So should we leave something in here as a placeholder? I mean, do you want me to leave the 750? Should we get a smaller number? I mean, it sounds like it's still gonna be something.
Well, wait till Jim gets back.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll leave it, okay. All right, and then the Wharton Maintenance Facility.
He better crunch those numbers. That would be capital.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot. Well,
Foundation,
15. Yeah.
So,
And what square footage did he say that was? 15,000. I think Wayne told me that they're looking at 12,000 and getting quotes for that. So
One thing they did with that maintenance facility, they took the square footage of the old roller rink
Correct.
and added it to the square footage of the maintenance building they got, which is a big building.
Yeah, because
Right.
they operate out of.
And we don't even
45 square feet
use
now.
the roller rink for anything other than to pile junk in it. You could get I'm envisioning a maintenance facility maybe half as big as the one they got there at metal building.
Well, that's what they need, that plus some more space.
Yes.
For storage of all the equipment, but only the maintenance part. I mean, they're working out of 1,000 square foot now. If they had that a little bigger, because they are crunched, and then had storage that doesn't need the heat, doesn't need any of that. Maybe concrete floor would be fine, but I don't know what. I mean, I've never seen a number like that for. I mean, that
That's $700,000. That's a lot of money.
$700,000 for even 15,000 square feet. I mean, that is insane.
okay, so we have a new quote coming, you think? Okay. All right, and so then the next one is the, bathhouse renovation.
Where is that? What comprises of that? Is that
Okay.
POS money?
No. There's not enough POS money to make that happen. The plans were drawn up, the design was drawn up last year, had been in the FY19 budget from that point forward. So this is, it's more than a facelift, it's a complete renovation.
Well, I'm just going to pass this on, and I mean that's a pretty big ticket item too, but it's well used for sure down there. But the last COG meeting I was at, Betterton's mayor said something about he hoping we'd do something with the bathhouse. Now I don't know that means renovation or just fixing it up. I tell you
We
what I
fixed it
did.
up a couple years ago.
Yeah, what did we do there? What, Billy, you know more about.
Well, we
what-
just painted and stuff like that. But they're going after POS money.
No,
They're not
there's
now.
Not POS money enough to go around for something like that.
I tell you one thing I like that Myra sent us that picture of those floors they put in that. Where were they at? In Millington Pool. The flooring. That was a nice little job. At least those pictures.
It
showed
was.
to be.
Actually, they did a really good job with that.
Well, we'll keep it in there for now.
Okay.
The Nicholson water treatment plant upgrade,
Keeps on giving.
Okay.
the Turner's Creek bulkhead.
That's a terrible one.
So we don't have any funding from DNR on that?
Not for that piece.
Have we applied?
I can't talk to that.
A couple of years ago for the bulkhead.
For Turner's Creek?
Turner's Creek.
This is,
Didn't we pass?
yeah, this is a 50/50, let's see. Yeah, so,
Something
On
about
page
Turner's
29.
Creek.
Okay.
They run into a problem because the water's so deep there or something. Didn't they talk about that not long ago? The water around that Turner's Creek landing or the bulkhead was real deep, and they
Yeah, I know that the cost went up significantly because
costs
some
went
of
up significantly because of the length of the sheeting they had to use.
manufactured instead of buying something.
so it's a $375,000 project, this would be our share. 50%.
What's that now?
It's a $375,000 project to do the bulkhead, and this would be our share.
And this is their share. Why don't we just ride up? Let's ride up there. I'll ride up there and take a look at it, see if we can get another year or so out of this thing. I mean, it looks like.
Okay.
Okay, Baker Neck pier redecking. This is a 50/50 match also,
Right.
it's a $177,000 project, so the $88,000 is our share.
Keep it in.
The public safety building engineering study.
Right now, you have 75K in this year's budget. Even if we move forward tomorrow with it, we figure we couldn't spend it all this year.
The decision has to be decided. Are we going to go ahead with a public safety bill? Or are we gonna be able to use existing facilities?
And hopefully this would help determine that. Have them evaluate the various options.
Including Wharton Elementary.
And we kind of sat on this, we tabled it because we weren't sure if Wharton Elementary was even an option, and why waste time and money if it's not an option.
37,000?
37 and 37 for a total of 75 next year for the feasibility study.
Gotta figure out what we're gonna do, so we can't go blind.
Well, we can't decide until they
They
decide.
decide, we'll have to keep it in for right now.
Can't they do the site selection feasibility to include that and other, I mean, can't they?
Can we move ahead with the feasibility study?
For the site selection.
I thought we had already agreed upon it, even with this.
I think so.
Okay.
Let's start, include that, get it started somewhere.
I mean, if they come back and say it's gonna cost more to retrofit Wharton Elementary School and upgrade it than put a new building at our complex, I mean, then you know it's not, that part's not an option.
All right. I can't see that. Still on,
Still on
Park.
our consultant design services.
What is it, what are we gonna design up there?
What do you want them to design?
Huh?
It's sitting there like it is now. People have been using it as a beach, I think.
I mean, if we decided to put a pavilion there, we just put a pavilion there. We don't need to spend $25,000 for them to say, look nice, you have a pavilion up here.
I think part of the issue
25,000
is,
table pavilion.
that's
Yeah.
where we would.
yeah, I mean, how far do you wanna take it?
I don't-
Water and sewer,
No,
Okay.
no.
so what's the message?
I think just do away with the design right now. I mean, the money for the design,
Okay,
we'll decide what we want up there when the time's right. I would think.
This other 20,000 is just, we,
This is our installment on
yes,
our-
our
Yep.
installment. Okay. So, I guess we've got a lot of further information to get on some of these.
oh, there you go, down at the bottom, you have the Still Pond Park. I mean, if you were to move ahead with that design, that was what was envisioned. The restroom, pavilion, water, sewer, electric connections, and playground.
Probably gonna be backed off until FY21.
Okay, so this one is the capital expenditure. So it's in the same format, and this summary shows it by department, and we can walk through them one at a time. But it goes from the largest requesting department to the least. So environmental operations has the largest request at $764,000, and that was for these 6 items. The largest being the horizontal yard waste grinder at $480,000. So there's a flatbed stake body with a lift gate to replace a vehicle with 220,000 miles.
They're not, just to go back to, because we looked at maybe purchasing that horizontal yard grinder.
Right. That is the service that MES currently
Right.
provides.
Right. And we're already paying them
Something like that.
So,
So yeah, we would have $109,000 in savings, but we'd have to pay $55,000 in maintenance, is what I'm being told.
And we would likely have to hire somebody to work it.
that's what I was getting at. So,
Let me just tell you something. I watched that thing. When they come to Rock Hall, I watched that operation. I'm not sure I want to be involved, but that's a lot to that operation. That ain't as simple as taking something down. There's a guy that's got a big panel truck that size of an ambulance with all his tools and stuff. The thing breaks down, not all the time, but it's a lot of moving parts. And
I'm take it out.
I tell you, I think we're still better off to pay for the service right now.
But we could also bid that out.
Yep, absolutely.
We don't have to sole source that just to.
That's correct.
So-
What we get by using MES is over 30 grand applied toward our yard waste grinding. They take that, the first 30 plus that it costs, they don't charge us for.
We still bid it.
So we get that credit, Queen Anne's gets it. I do not believe that Talbot gets that same credit, or maybe it's us and Caroline get it. 2 counties do and 2 don't.
Well, they're
Well,
gonna
I
ask
tell
for it
you,
now
it's
that they're watching you say that.
It's a pretty expensive operation as far as I'm not sure that you'd want to be involved in maintaining a piece of equipment like that.
Consensus to take that out.
As far as I'm concerned.
All right, we'll have to go through the rest of them from the top. There's a flatbed stake body with a lift gate to replace a piece of equipment with 220,000 miles on it.
Can that fall under our
That's the
fleet?
one that goes around the land, isn't it? Is that what that is?
The fleet management is only passenger vehicles.
What kind of money we got to play with this? Are you,
$1,000,005.
huh?
$1,000,005.
$1.5 million, $1.5 million.
Yeah.
Out of that list right there?
Capital, right,
And that, the total list for capital is $1.9 million.
right.
You
So,
know.
I mean, by taking that 480 out, you dropped it significantly.
Right.
Yeah.
What can they fund? How much? That would.
I think the $1.5 million.
But we'd all,
So that's your million.
The $1.5
We-
million is the fund balance that's available.
but we'd also talked about if we need to change, revenue,
If you want to go deeper into fund balance.
calling it revenue. You know, the money's there. It's we have extra $1 million a year, whatever. If, I know you cut the budget closer, but
A lot
It's
closer.
not closer.
A
revenue.
lot closer. And the FY18 projection also is cut
Yeah.
a lot
We
closer.
really, recognizing that and anticipating that, knowing it was going to be a tight year, we really think we got some really
So
good numbers.
you're telling me, you're assuring me next year, if we're sitting here, you're not gonna sit here and go, oh, we just finished the year with $1 million extra.
Nope.
I'd much rather have the next year finish with $1 million.
I think that it'll be
having-
significantly less than it's been in the previous years.
And Pat could show you.
I agree with that, except for the fact that, you know, having
If
it
you-
contiguous every year.
And that's what we're
and not
trying
having the
to.
revenue stream to actually do things that we need in operating
Yes.
is detrimental as well, you know, at the same time. So that whatever that fine line is, that's where we got to come to that.
And we've really tried to, I can't tell you, like, I don't know that 7.5, you know, if you want to know that number, if you're comfortable with 6, knowing that it usually, I mean, you can go into the fund balance further. But the way
I
the
think we should keep
projections
it
stand right
7.5, because it's halfway between the desired between 5 and 10%. That's why we keep.
And what
Right.
I mean, if Pat has, and she could present to you next week if you want to see it, is the CAFR information year over year, say for the past 3 years, and looking at where each department ended versus their budget, and then what their budget is this year, and you can see how much you could actually quantify how much you could scale back by if you wanted to look at it that way.
I mean,
Why
I
don't
would
we
say there's
keep up
probably-
with this and we'll see where we're at. We'll see, we've taken a lot out of it. We may not even need to lower it any, but if we do, we'll talk about it. But I think there, you can take that 480,000 yard waste grinder out of there and probably say hello to the rest.
Because you still have the other allocated in the operation already. You didn't pull it out of operation, what it's gonna cost us to take care of the grinding and all that. It's
No.
already in the other side of the budget already.
Yes, yes.
Then fine.
I just put a note in there to know that if you approve this, I'd have to pull it out.
Nope. Buying the grinder's gone.
You know, the flatbed, I mean, it looks beat up pretty bad when they're running around the county. So I'm fine with that. I think the front end loader, you know, get them to get a price point, just so for my satisfaction, tell me what a new motor is, because that's generally the biggest item that goes wrong. Everything else is normal maintenance, whether it's seals in the rear end or hydraulics, you know, that's all a maintenance thing. Motor's what's gonna cost. Find out how much a new motor, because that equipment will last a long time just by upgrading that kind, instead of spending $195,000.
And or if they know of any hydraulics that need
It is 20 years old. Or what's available on the used market too.
And I tell you, I don't know whether we've ever done it or not, but I've been up there for the town 3 different times up there to that sale up on Route 40. That's an amazing place.
Yep.
And it's got equipment up there.
Maybe we'll get a used one for a
Deal
while.
out of it. Yeah, we've bought a couple pieces of equipment up there and never went wrong yet.
Okay, so we good with this one?
Yep.
All right, roads. Okay, so the model year and the miles have listed out here. It's replacing, so the standard cap. Bucket truck, he's actually wanting to replace 2 of them, 1993 and a 2001, and just get 1 new one.
Right. And he says both those have been certified, I guess, as risk now. When he had them certified this year, he made the comment in here that, you know, fractures and stuff like that, I think where they're becoming a risk. So I'd say leave it in,
Leave that in.
and 1 dump truck. Or we don't fall too far behind on that.
Truck.
So we weren't
I mean,
taking-
both dump trucks?
No, 1.
The bucket truck and the dump truck?
Dump truck and bucket truck.
Oh,
Get rid of the
okay.
other- Get rid of the other dump
So
truck.
there's 2 standard cab dump trucks, so you want for 145.5, so take one.
Yeah.
See which one.
Okay.
It's probably the older one, but,
I think he's got them in order of priority.
right.
Okay, so then the brush chipper and the wheel.
The crew cab 4x4.
Now, that would be covered by
The fleet.
the fleet management.
Perhaps put that in there.
Wait a minute, what happened to the broom sweeper? With a wheel loader?
That was for the dump.
Right. No, it's for roads.
The
Have they
hydraulic
done-
broom sweeper for wheel loader.
Where's it at?
Third line,
Wheel loader.
15.6.
Yeah, but it's not there.
Yeah,
15.6.
15.6.
The angle hydraulic broom
Third
sweeper.
item down.
They don't work up there, they only work right here.
Keep that in there for right now, I don't care right now. And you were talking about the, this is another dump truck.
That's the one
The
we're
dump
taking
truck's
out.
That's what we're taking out.
And then the crew cab 4x4
And that fills,
could go
that
through
goes
fleet,
into the fleet operation.
so that can come off there.
If you give us the go-ahead, we
Right.
can readjust.
Secret ballot.
But yeah, exactly. And then, I know that I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit, but I know we're running a little low on time. In the sheriff's office, you guys usually give the head nod for him to order his cars because of the cutoff dates of the manufacturing.
But again, that deals with the fleet.
But if we decide to move forward with the fleet management, then we would give Enterprise the go-ahead, at least the head nod for those vehicles.
And I don't think you want to miss that. I really don't have anybody looking out for that.
And,
Okay.
again,
We have a lot of vehicles.
you evaluate it a year or 2 years. If it's not,
Then we
tell them
get
take
rid
your
of
stuff.
Meeting.
Okay.
Do we have a head nod to go ahead with the sheriff's office cars?
If it's through fleet.
Yep, okay, okay.
Well, and almost either way, if we don't, you know, through fleet, we've agreed to do fleet, so that's, yeah, it'll be through them, but.
You got three votes to join fleet, so you
Yep.
definitely, I mean, because they need to move on that by May 1st, wasn't it?
Yeah, to make this holistic, the whole thing. Why
Okay, yep, no, we're just verifying.
take off a little bit so we can have the headaches for it? No, give it to them all.
Sounds good. And then there's some of the documentation that you can actually sign prior to the end of the fiscal year. You're not actually, you're not obligating dollars, but moving ahead with like the master lease agreement, for example. So no, $0.
The only other thing is the brush chipper
Oh, going back?
No, county roads.
for county roads.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he made a pretty good point, they needed that. if we have the structure to do it.
Then we'll keep that in for now.
So just, we're taking out the crew cab and the other one will be purchased through fleet.
Want to stop there?
I was gonna say,
I get angry if I pass 5 o'clock.
No, not Mr. Gunhuntingway or Musketeer.
We had Snickers before.
Jackie.
I think we made really good progress, and I'll revise the numbers and get them back out to you.
All right.
Okay.
Back. Thanks for coming. Bob, you want one? Reese cup? Come on, buddy. I'm gonna